Eared Comics. Always comics, all the time.
Hi, hello, and welcome to the first episode of our new podcast. My name is Jordan Lowe.
And I am KJ. How you doing, Jordan?
Hey, I'm doing good. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to talk with you tonight.
Yeah, it's been a while, like a week, I think.
Like an hour?
An hour, two, something. Well, it's been a week since last time I saw you, I think. Yeah.
All right, so what are we doing here? We're recording what they call a podcast.
Podcast, yep.
Which, up to about a year ago, I didn't even know what that was. But now I'm a podcast star.
Yay! You're on some other shows, though, aren't you?
I am. We did the So Pro podcast, which has morphed, or will be morphing very soon, into a different, called the Kapow. We're going to expand and do a little bit different things. We talk about pop culture, nerdy, geeky topics, movies, TV, comics.
I don't do any of those things.
You wouldn't be into it. Don't tune in.
What got you into comic books in the first place?
Well, I was a young man. I never really collected comics when I first started reading them. We just kind of had some. You would get gifts from a relative or whatever. So we always just had some around the house. So that early 80s, there's G.I. Joe, Spider-Man, Superman.
The classics.
The classic ones. It wasn't really till the 90s I actually started going and buying them myself and collecting specific issues. So I'm a little bit younger than you. You were in the game before I was. We've actually known each other quite a few years.
Yeah. You're just pointing out how old I am. But, yeah.
Because I live right next door to some of your relatives.
Yep.
And then when you would come over to visit, we spent every day at their house with the Jeff, your half-brother there.
Yep.
We spent every day down there. So whenever you'd come over to visit, who's this guy?
Exactly.
Who's this odd fellow?
Exactly.
So yeah, we've known each other since younglings.
Yes, indeed.
And you knew your stuff back then already. Like you would, oh, you like comics too? It's like, and I'd be like, yeah, kind of. And you're like, well, here's this, and this. Here's a lot of facts. And you would drop all this knowledge on me. It was very impressive. I have to say, as a young kid, I was like, that guy really knows what he's talking about.
I
gotta up my game.
Back then, there wasn't any internet to look things up, so you had to go out and search these things out. So when you found something, you hooked onto it. You went out and you looked for all this information. You went out to. There wasn't a whole lot of comic shops at the time. I was buying my comics out of the grocery store called Balls in Caldwell and off the spinner racks.
Is that still open?
No, it's gone now. It wasn't until later on that I realized when I told people I bought my comics from Balls that it's kind of funny when I say that. But that was the name of the grocery store, and then it was Warren's IGA Food Center here in Marietta. It wasn't until a lot later that I actually went to a comic book shop. But until then, it was going to yard sales, grabbing any comics that I found just to get information on them and stuff.
Kids today are spoiled with their Wikipedias and their internets.
Well, it's on the internet. It must be true. So, but yeah.
But I do have very strong memories of you. I'm sure you were, did you have friends that read comics?
Yep.
Okay, because you were trying to get into conversations with me, and I'd never read any of this stuff. I knew, I'd read a handful of stuff. You'd be like, yeah, no, but what about this guy? And I remember you first explaining to me that Sabretooth was Wolverine's dad.
Yeah.
Because that had just happened in the comics in the early 90s. And it's
retcon now.
Yeah, that didn't last. But I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. And you kind of explained it to me.
Yeah.
Some of those other things that you set me straight on some of this stuff.
It was my cousin Dave who was into comic books at the time as well. But like you, I had comics laying around the house all over. When I was little, my mom would buy me stuff like Archie and the good kids stuff, kid friendly, the wholesome
friendly.
Yeah, I think the darkest thing I had was either Hot Stuff, the Little Devil, or Spooky, the rude little ghost. Which, by the way, I still like those. Those are actually kind of funny if you go back and look at them because they're dicks.
It's a Casper, like a dead child. Some of these things, if you put a Vertigo twist on some of these things, could be kind of dark.
Yeah, and like I said, Hot Stuff is a little devil. He's from hell, so therefore, he's a nice guy to hang out with, I guess. But anyway, it wasn't until later that I picked up my very first issue of Uncanny X-Men off the spinner rack. I was like 7 years old, and I about peed myself after I read it.
That hooked you. That got you coming back for the next issue.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, little did I know at the time that the next issue was actually like 8 or 9 issues later, because that was one issue that just didn't sell, so it just stayed on the spinner rack. So, but yeah, I've been reading them forever. See, it feels like that anyway. Since I was 7, that's 30 years ago.
It's an interesting. I guess I had this conversation with someone else not too long ago. I was more into baseball cards.
Yeah.
So when I went to a store like Alonzo's here in Marietta, or you know, some of the Hydorns, those early 90s, there were a lot of baseball card stores, and most of them sold comics as well.
Oh, yeah.
So when I went to one of those stores, I was looking for baseball cards. And right around 91, 92, they started doing comic book cards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the X-Men cards. And
that's an easy thing to branch in. Well, I already collect cards. Like, these look kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if I can give all the credit, but I'm sure some credit has to go to these cards. They were like the Wikipedia of the day. Like, you didn't have to read all the... You could read I know all these characters, and I know all this information. And the back of them would have, like...
their stats.
Yeah, different important storylines and different things that they... team-ups they've had and villains they fight. And, like, you could learn all this stuff just from these cards.
Wasn't it like the original Marvel Universe cards on the back? It had how many fights they had been in, how many they had won, how many they had lost. I remember that.
Vital information.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, because the comic book that I started off was X-Men, and Wolverine was the primary character in that story, and he had like the biggest 50-50 of all of them, and I'm just like, what the? I mean, I get it that he is the quintessential badass, but he got his butt kicked just as much as he kicked butt. So it was funny to see those and everything, and surprised me how much Spider-Man had like a more of a losing record than he did a winning on the back of him. If I may be remembering this wrong, but I just remember getting those going, wow, they fought in 432 times.
Well, that's like your favorite baseball players. Like, this guy struck out way too much.
Yeah.
Like, come on, get your average up there, Spider.
Exactly. I'm going to have to go back. I know I still have all of my X-Men cards. I don't think I have any of my Marvel Universe cards anymore.
A couple. I don't think there's any I really completed a set on or whatever. Maybe some of those Flair, like those Premiere.
Yeah.
The really thick, glossy
the Marvel
ones.
Masterworks.
Yeah, the ones that were painted. Like, I think I may have completed a set on one of those, but the other ones I just had some here and there.
I still have the X-Men set along with I had the full set along with all 5 of the hologram cards. I still have them, and I don't know why. It's not like they're worth anything. It's just one of those little things I look back and go, oh yeah, back when things were cool.
Yeah, but those 90s years, that was when the bubble was happening, and like there was just stuff. It's kind of like today, like it's just out. It was out there more. You saw it more. Like, I didn't really see a lot of comics at grocery stores and stuff. Like, so they weren't in my experience. I said I had some, but I wasn't really exposed to them a lot. So when the bubble hit and now comic stores are popping up.
Yeah.
And now these characters, because we're selling millions of copies now to all the speculators. It just became more into pop culture, and more. You had the X-Men cartoon come on. Like, it just became a little more accepted and a little more out there.
Yeah.
So it became easier to dive into that world, which is kind of what I did. I'm sure watching the X-Men cartoon got me to like, well, yeah, maybe I bought enough baseball cards. Maybe this week I'll buy a comic. So I kind of transitioned from cards to comics, and then it was all over for me.
Yeah, of course.
And like you, it was X-Men that got me into it. And like most kids in the 90s, it was X-Men. That was all what we were all about.
I always joke because, like I said, like 1983 was when I started buying comic books. I mean, that I started trying to get full runs, everything. I even bought a damn dictionary to sit beside my bed because I didn't understand certain words. I was so young. But I bought it at a garage sale for $0.25, so I was like, why not? But and then I hear a lot of people today, they're like, I've been reading comic books forever, ever since Civil War. And I'm like, oh, you can go to... I get really upset with that point because I'm like, you know nothing, Jon Snow, or whatever. But because I got to throw my pop culture reference in there somewhere. But no, I mean, it's one of the things that just, it hooked me, like, right away. And after that, I was just like, it consumed me.
And never let you go.
Exactly, and that's also when I fell in love with Storm. But, I mean, when you see Storm laying naked in a bed with a sheet over her, barely covering anything, talking to Wolverine, you suddenly just realize that, you know what? This is a good thing. I was 7 and I was saying, this is a good thing. So it was something. But that's what, yeah, I'd always read comics, but I never really got into them until I hit that X-Men, and then it was just like, boom. And then New Mutants. Right after that, I was right on the New Mutants bandwagon. And, yeah, never really looked back.
Nice,
so.
nice. That brings up a point of, it's kind of a big thing. Today's world is newbies are you a long-term fan? What's your cred? What's your nerd cred? Are you a fake nerd? Or are you a real nerd? And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the cutoff is. But I've said before on my other podcast, which you can check out somewhere. Am I allowed to plug other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did a whole thing talking about our history and stuff, and it was, I dealt with that for a long time. I felt like a newbie, like, especially, being around you, like, you'd read comics way longer than I have. And I was like, well, I just got into it because of the cartoon.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a fake nerd. So, that's never really left me. It's like, I didn't read comics as a kid. I didn't start till I was 12. Like, there's that weird feeling of I jumped on the bandwagon late. And I think there's so many people now getting into this stuff thanks to the movies and the cartoons and stuff. That's a real, especially online. Everybody's so mean to each other. Of like, oh, you're not a real. I've been reading comics since Civil War. Well, I've been reading them since whatever.
Yeah.
So that's, and what's the point? Why argue over that kind of stuff?
Yeah. The only thing that really annoys me when it comes to that is when they're like, when they think that in the movies are exact to the comics. They're like, no, because Captain America did this. And I'm like, no, he didn't. And they're like, yeah, it happened in the movie. I'm like, that doesn't mean it happened in the continuity, in the real universe.
Yeah, but there's always that one guy who just knows a little bit more than his friends.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, well, from this, it led to this. And you're just like, no, just stop talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're impressing your friends, but you're so wrong about it.
Exactly. And going to the comic book shops, I love that. Whenever you hear them in there quoting things wrong, because I have to bite my lip because I just want to go up and smack them in the back of the head a good one. And I know that's not going to happen. I mean, no, let me rephrase that. I would so slap them in the back of the head if I didn't know the owner, and he would ban me from the store. Because I think I would, play, bag tag with them really hard or something and drop them. But
there's that barrier to entry is so low now. Like you said, you had to go to different grocery stores, and you were 9 issues behind. Well, good luck, kid. Like, you weren't going to find that information unless you really dug in. And so the people of our generation, we're hooked.
Yeah.
We put in the time, we put in the work.
Exactly.
We've spent the money.
Yep.
And we are into this.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't mean we've earned our nerd cred or whatever, way you can say
we've been
better
through
than
our
someone.
Wars. Yeah.
I got the scars that prove it. But nowadays, it's so easy to have all that information right at your fingertips.
Yep. You
can just jump in very easily, which is good, but you can also leave very easily.
Yeah.
So, it's that's what caused the boom and bust of the 90s.
Yep.
Everyone jumped in, they speculated, they bought a bunch of stuff, and then they got out with a year later.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping history doesn't repeat itself, and these movies have created a legion of new fans.
Yeah.
They're hardcore nerds this year.
Yeah.
And then a year from now, well, I'm really into westerns or whatever the next thing is.
Yeah.
So I don't want to lose all these new these new fans need to be cultivated and brought along and welcome to our world. We shouldn't be pushing them away and be like, you're a newbie, you don't know anything.
Well, the way I feel is that anybody who says they want to be a comic book fan, you've seen that Clockwork Orange?
Time or two.
Or they tie him to the chair. That's what we do. We just be like, no, this is how you do it. Maybe I'm going too far, but I think that's a good way to start people off.
But you need to read the books. I can't tell you how many people, have movies coming out based on whatever. I was like, oh, have you read that? Oh no, but I've read the synopsis. I read the wiki. I did this. I'm good. I know what it was. It was like, well, you didn't experience it.
Yeah, there are certain moments in a bunch of different comic books, but there are certain moments in almost Like every big storyline, if it's done right, will catch you perfectly. Whether it be just a line or just a page, just a reaction that the artist drew, something that will just like get you right in the stomach. I mean, I remember the first one that got me was Watchmen, and yeah, they did it in the movie, but it didn't have the same impact to me. Where Rorschach is in the comic book, they're standing there in front of Ozymandias.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Why would I tell you my plan if I thought you could beat it? I did it 15 minutes ago." And I remember just stopping and going back like 3 pages immediately, going, "Wait, what?" Trying to find where he did it, and then I'm just like, "Oh my God, he just did it. There was no, you have a chance to stop me. No, you're screwed."
Did you pick that up off the racks as it was coming out? Or
No, I read them. They'd already been out for a while, but my cousin Dave had them, and I read his copies.
Yeah.
It'd been out for like 4 or 5 years. And
yeah, that was 85, 86. We were a little younger.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I read them, I was like 12, 13 years old, and I remember just going, "Wait, what?" and like running back through the pages trying to find what just happened.
Well, that's another thing, is reading something monthly, to me, the experience is different.
Oh, yeah.
Same with a TV show. When you binge watch a TV show, you lose that experience of even the commercial breaks cause tension and like what's going to happen next.
Oh, yeah.
And my brother and I, we coined it commercial soak-in time.
Ah, yeah.
Because we didn't, when Buffy the Vampire Slayer switched networks.
Yeah.
From, was it CW to UPN or whatever?
Yeah, it was UPN. So
we didn't get that, but my brother in Columbus did. So he taped them all for us and cut out the commercials because he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, we'd get 3 or 4 episodes, and he'd get we're talking old days, VCR, VHS tapes.
Baby,
He'd come to visit, give us a VHS tape. We're like, hooray, we can watch Buffy now. And we'd watch. It's like these aren't as good as they used to be. And we thought it was like, well, because we're watching them right after another.
Yeah.
And we're not, because Joss Whedon writes so perfectly for the format.
Yeah.
He writes to that half-hour break. Like there's a big climax, and you have to, and like. When you don't watch commercials, you don't have that moment of like, holy cow, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
So I think comics are the same way. Yeah, but that was our joke. It was like, we need that commercial soak-in time.
Yeah.
We need to have time to soak in what we just saw. And so, yeah, that's an inside joke. But
I get that.
But yeah, when you get a digital subscription and you read 100 comics in a row, or you even trade paperback, you just sit down and read the whole thing cover to cover.
Yeah.
That's a different experience than waiting for it to come out and like that last page, what's going to happen next? Like, there's different ways to read comics.
Yeah,
where they're changing.
Well, sure. I mean, okay, going back to the whole Watchmen comic book, I said if I had to wait monthly, I think it would have drove me nuts. I don't know, I'm not being mean, but at that age, it was hard to keep following it. Whereas when I had them all sit in front of me and I went through them, it felt better. It felt more natural, more organic, as people say, which means nothing. I don't understand why people say that. But anyway, I just remember, I mean, I burned through them in like one summer afternoon. I went outside. Yeah. And it's scary, I know. I went outside and I sat on a rock.
In the sunlight?
In the sunlight, yeah. And I read through them all. And like I said, I got to that last issue and I'm like, this is really cool. It's really, and I felt, you felt kind of like you were breaking the law or something as a little kid because you're like, oh, there's naked girl. There's swears. But so I was there reading, and like I said, I got to that last issue. I'm just burning through. I'm like, this is so good. And then that scene happened, and I just stopped in my tracks. I was like, do I have to go back to the beginning? Did something happen that I didn't see? And it's just the way it worked. And that and the other line from Rorschach, the whole. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. And I read that, and I remember just like stopping, reading all together, and just kind of like sit back on. And I was like, "Holy crap, this is amazing!" And you don't get that feel when you get the movies and stuff like that. I mean, it's still an iconic scene if you go to the movies.
Yeah.
But when you read it and it's in your head and everything, you can imagine the exact motion. It just kind of takes you back for a minute and makes you stop in your tracks.
Yeah, to me, comics are more interactive that way.
Oh, yeah.
A TV, a movie happens to you. It's projected, and you just sit and watch it.
You accept it.
You blink, and you might miss something. Whatever.
Yeah.
A movie, they just throw a movie at you. A comic, you have to internalize. You're hearing the voices, you're imagining the movements, and there's more. You're doing more work.
Exactly.
So I think it can sink its claws a little deeper into you.
Exactly. And I mean, if you were to watch The Watchmen, Who watches The Watchmen? I watch The Watchmen.
I don't watch The Watchmen.
But when that scene happens, when he's like, I did it 15 minutes ago, in the movie, you just keep going. The comic, it made you stop in your tracks, and you're like, wait, and you have to go back.
Because you control the pace. Like, if there's something really cool, the pages are flipping faster. And a movie is the same running time for everything. So you can, if you're really suspenseful and you don't want to turn that page. I've had comics where I'm like, I don't even want to turn this page. Yeah. Something awful is going to happen. And you pause a few extra seconds, like, oh, don't happen, please. Yeah. Then you flip it, Or
the other big one that happened to me on that was Kraven's Last Hunt.
Really?
I remember when I was reading it, and it was the end of part 5, and I was buying them off the newsstand. I had started with like part 2 because I missed part 1 altogether. So I was like, "What's going on?" Because again,
and you didn't say, "I'm going to wait for the trade." I don't care. No, you were like, "What's a trade paperback?" I've never heard of it.
I remember I got issue 5 or part 5 of it. I think it was an Amazing Spider-Man. And spoiler alert for you folks out there, but at the end of it, Kraven helps Spidey defeat Vermin. Vermin, yeah, what a character there. And then he helps him leaving like that. He walks upstairs and blows his brains out. And I'm just like, wait, what? It was one of those moments where I was like, I don't want to get the next issue just because. Yeah. I was never a huge fan of Kraven, but that story made Kraven one of the coolest characters ever. And to have it end like that, not only did it blow his mind, it blew my mind. And I'm just like, what? And I was actually kind of scared to get the last issue because I was like, no, it was too, no.
I'll just leave it over there across the room. It can't hurt me.
Exactly. But, I mean, there's moments like that in classic story arcs that would just make you stop in your tracks and just be like, wait, no. It's like Cleveland. No. And then the bathtub falls out the window. You know it's going to happen. You just don't want it to. You can beg all you want. But, and as a kid, those types of comics is what really sealed the deal for me. And there was no, internet at the time where, it was like, oh, my God, did you read the last bit of this? This is what happens. And you're like, screw you, man. Yeah. It was you found out by going to the store, buying your comic book, and just laying back and reading it. And it was, there are moments in there, like I said, that one was a big one for me. There's been several that made me just stop in my tracks.
And we'll get to more of those in future episodes where we will discuss. So this was just our first episode. We're just kind of introducing ourselves. We wanted to let you know who we are and what we're into, quote unquote, comic books. So we thought we should at least explain what we're trying to do with our few minutes here left. We don't have a mission statement per se, but this show we want to focus on comics. We love TV, we love movies, we love video games, but the source of a lot of those things are comic books. And there are hundreds of other shows, hundreds of other websites where we can debate movie trailers and whatever, but we want to talk comics. That's what we love the most. That's what got us into this. That's what brought us to the dance, and we're going to keep dancing with it. So, we're going to, we might tie a show into pop culture that's going on. We might talk about, we'll give you our opinions on stuff, but our primary focus are going to be comics. And we don't want to lose sight of what, the source material that
has
spawned all these new things.
Yeah.
And the other thing, we're gonna try to be positive about things because we're not, this isn't a review show. We're not gonna say, well, here's a new comic, I hated it, blah blah blah.
I might do that.
So we don't want to just this sucks and we don't like that. We want to celebrate what we love. Yeah. So we're gonna tell you about the best comics, and we're not gonna tear down the worst ones. We're gonna tell you what you should be reading and what you should be into. Or at least that's the plan.
That's the plan.
You have kind of a wicked grin on your face.
Well, it's one of those things where, yes, we are not going to tear anything down. I may leave the room if you say something like, something that I absolutely hate and detest. I would just be like, no, and just walk away. And we'll just leave it at that. You can continue your story.
Next week's episode, exactly. 6 hours of Liefeld. Wall-to-wall Liefeld.
Liefeld. He created Deadpool.
Who?
Deadpool. You never heard of this guy?
I never heard of him.
He's this underground character that...
Sweet.
Yeah. But if we can say one good thing that he's done, that's it. So...
And we're going to try to keep things as diverse as we can. Like I said, we talked about Watchmen for 10 minutes, but there are 100 other shows out there talking about Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, and we're going to try to talk about more obscure things, just like individual issues that we really loved or something that clicked with us. So we're going to try to do a little bit more under the radar, and we're going to try to hit different genres, not just superheroes.
And we may even, tell Marvel and DC what they're doing wrong. It'll be a Festivus for the rest of us. And
I got a lot of problems with you people.
And, you younger kids out there who have no idea what this means, go Google it, because that's what you do.
So, there will be spoilers involved. We're going to be talking about plot lines. If there's something huge that would ruin your enjoyment, like, if Kraven shot himself and that was the whole point of the story.
Spoilers again.
We're going to try to not spoil huge things like that. Or if, let's say Ozymandias is the villain and blows up the world.
Whoops.
We've already spoiled what we can. But there will be spoilers on here. So if you're phobic of those, maybe avoid us. But hey, we're here to have some fun, talk some comics, and maybe educate a few people into something you've never read or something you've thought sounded cool. If you can go out and find that comic that does the same for you that it did to us, man, then our job has been done.
Kudos.
So, hey, thanks for joining me, KJ.
Hey, no problem, Jordan. It was fun, and I can't wait to do the next one.
Episode 2 coming very soon. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Cheers.